But there's more to the question than that. That isn't the last word or the only word. And here at the end of Act 4, so this is material for our next class, Bottom articulates a different point of view, and then you can think of the argument in the play, or the argument over the play, or the way it leads us on wondering in these questions. You could think of it as a kind of argument or a dispute between Bottom and Theseus. They never really talk to one another, but we can wonder who is the great character of this play. Is it Theseus and his realistic, rationalist point of view, or is it Bottom the dreamer? Does he have the truth about things? And at the end of Act 4, so of course these are right together in playtime, at the end of Act 4 and the beginning of Act 5, there's not much time in between those two things, so they're there side by side for contrast. At the end of Act 4, Bottom gets a wonderful speech where he talks about his experience during the night after it's over, that he's turned into an animal, and then a divine goddess falls in love with him. This happens early in the night, and by morning it's all over. He's back to being Bottom, the human being, and she's back to thinking that he's ridiculous and not worth bothering with. But does it make a difference that he's had this experience? It certainly makes a difference to him. But what experience is it? Well, he can't say, and it seems to exist in being not expressible. And this is perhaps the way for us to get a handle on it. It's a man reduced below the state of normal men. Loved by a woman elevated above the state of normal women. So complete mismatch. And we could look, well, what's behind that? What makes this possible? What angle can we look at it so that the complete lack of appropriateness, the incommensurability, the complete mismatch starts to make sense? But I think all of those things would be the wrong way to go about it. And then just take the simple view. It is a complete mystery. It does make no sense. It exists as the beautiful thing it is because it's such a perfect mismatch. The divine, gracious, and beautiful woman who's able to give him any luxury, falling in love with the thoroughly content, low man, slips very easily into his pleasant existence as half a beast. She offers him every possible luxury, and he's in such a condition that he wants dried peas or hay, so not even human food. It's this great mismatch that is the beauty of the experience, and trying to find an angle by which it isn't mysterious or wrong or mismatched would seem to distort it. Not, of course, that the most beautiful, eligible woman for some strange reason falling in love with a low man. Not that never happens in life. You may have observed this from time to time, looking at the people around you. But Bottom wakes up, and he's at least reasonable enough to see that his experience, the essence of his experience, is that he shouldn't try to describe it, but that its power is that somehow the mystery is endlessly fascinating. It has no bottom, as he says. You can't get to the bottom of it. You can't make it reasonable. You can't explore it and find it out. But you can just go on and on dreaming about it without ever understanding it. And perhaps this is the fulfillment of life. Bottom is nothing special. He's an ordinary worker. He has presumptions to be a creative person, a poet, and an actor. These are largely ridiculous. He is a representative of all the billions of inconsequential, unimportant people who live for a short time and die and are forgotten. Bottom is nothing. And yet, for an evening, he had the most beautiful experience, a better fulfillment to his life, love than even Theseus, who's greater than any politician we would ever meet in life, who marries a warrior queen, so a grander woman than we could find, even among the rich people and royals and celebrities that actually exist in our world. But perhaps Bottom outdoes even the mythical, heroic Duke of Athens and fulfills his love better. And of course, only for an evening. But the experience of that evening seems to change his life. And perhaps this is the thing that makes Bottom, who is nothing and doesn't count for anything more than nothing, makes him a human being, because it's an experience beyond normal experience, and he has enough of an ego just to relax and enjoy it for a while it's going on, and the memory of it sticks with him and inspires him, and he keeps it with him as through later life as something that cannot be explained, not a thing with a bottom that you could get down to, but something that he can dive into, keep going deeper and deeper as his life goes on. And that would be the contrast of the play. Is that the fulfillment of love? Maybe Theseus, who is resistant to that kind of beauty because he insists on reason. I never pay attention to those stories. So he's heard of the kind of things that are the magical things going on in this forest at night. And his response is not to be inspired by them, but just to say, oh, that's all idiocy, that's insanity, that's nonsense. I dismiss all those stories. And of course, Theseus' reward is that he marries a grand woman, and he will get children because he's blessed by the magical creature. So he goes on sort of in the human way to get a family. And perhaps we should think that the accomplishments of Bottom in having the greatest love of this play are nothing because they only exist in feelings and imagination, whereas Theseus, although he doesn't have the depth of feeling, does get children, and that's the natural good thing that comes out of life. So that dispute is never resolved in this play, but it's for us to think about. Who gets the greatest reward and who has the greatest love? And those are not ways really to answer the question, is love reasonable, yes or no? But they're a way to explore what the possibilities of the answer are. I mean, one way we could say, following the Theseus strain, of course, love is reasonable because it's what gets you from being a child yourself to being a parent. So when you're a child, you're not yet ready for love. And when you're a parent, your love has been changed. And then it's somehow diluted, we could even say increased or magnified, but the love of the parents for each other is then mixed with the love of their children. Children are make it hard to sustain romances. Children are animals, so that you have to deal with their animal nature, and that's its own topic. But somehow that family is the natural end of the romance of love. And why would we say that's unreasonable? It's perfectly reasonable. And if there's a little nonsense along the way, that's certainly excusable, and love then would be reasonable. as a way to get from being a child to having children yourself. And we say, well, unreasonable in that if you experience it the way Lysander does, that he thinks it's certainly it's something of a scientific fact that Helena is beautiful and Hermia is not worth bothering with. That's the way he feels his love, and that's just him finally coming around to reason. This clearly is not true, because he thinks that love has a natural and reasonable cause, but that's clearly due to the power of his emotions and not any truth. The objective difference between Helena and Hermia can't be that one is an ugly raven and the other is a beautiful dove. That just doesn't seem to be a fact. So, but from that point of view, love is perfectly reasonable, not because the experience of it isn't silly and extreme, but because it's the way that families are created, and therefore reasonable in the sense that we need it and it's productive. But in another way, love, it would be funny to say that it's reasonable, but that the powerful experience such as Bottom has is highly valuable, and that people who, like Theseus, are incapable of that or deliberately reject it are putting a low ceiling on their lives, and maybe cutting themselves off from some higher achievements of the imagination. And it would be, as Bottom says, foolish to try to describe that and to pin it down. But perhaps the inspiration of love, particularly because it's not limited by our clumsy reason, is therefore valuable in itself.